Hello everyone, welcome to another ball-bouncingly brilliant episode of Stockbridge Sketchworks. I am your aromatic anchorman, Peter Stockbridge, and in today's episode we are continuing on with our Back to the Future project. So Marty is done after, 5 hours? 5, 6, 7-ish hours, including the time that I spent off screen. And so we are continuing on with Dr. Emmett Brown. Now, before I crack on with any more colouring, I have to start outlining some of the details here. Obviously, the reason why I haven't done up until now is because my hand was all over the place for the previous, as I said, 6, 7 odd hours, and whatever I would have done, had I done all of this beforehand, would have just been smudged and blurred and faded and horrible. So, as I said, because I'm left-handed, I sketch from the right-hand side to the left-hand side, so to avoid any smudging. I've had a lovely email from another one of my friends, and he's asked me to sketch his grandparents. He does hope that I might be able to do it in time for their birthday. So I'm going to honour it, and I'm going to do it for him, just because I'm awesome. I can't even pretend. I will do it for you, mate. His name's Lawrence, and he sounds like a lovely guy. So I will honour that, and I will get that done right after this one. It might be something that I don't film, just because I want to get it out quickly, and as I've explained before, it's kind of double the work at least when I'm filming. The stuff that I have to set up, and the tweaking and all that kind of thing, it's very time consuming. You wouldn't think about it, but it is, and it's something that I don't particularly enjoy. If I had my way, I would just sort of switch things on and go for it. I'd prefer it to be as easy as possible. But before we carry on with colouring in, we have to start defining Dr. Emmett Brown's lab coat now, and the remote control car. The remote control for the... I'm not with it today. The remote control for the remote control car there. Remote control car. That's so awesome. Yeah, I'm sure I've said this plenty of times throughout this run, but I absolutely fucking love Back to the Future. It's a treasure. It's not something that I watch all the time, but and I don't think I've actually seen it for a good, at least 5 years. But it's something that I hold dear, and it'll be a special one that I bring out of the cupboard and just indulge in. So we're just gonna do some of that flame in the background that's peeking through in between Marty and the dock. Just whip that out into place quickly, and then if it doesn't look right, I'll go back over it and sort it out. Now, so this bit down here is it's a bit of a pain in the arse. And yeah, I now realise that I haven't filmed most of it. So I am going to cut it. There we go. I think it's a battery pack for the rather sizable remote device thing he's got in his hands. That little thing to do was just annoying. I know you can't see it, but you will see it at some point. I have no doubt about that. So what I'm doing here is I'm going over the area of the lab coat with the correct lighting that's hitting it. Some elements are going to be yellow, some elements are going to be blue, some elements are going to be orange and then light brown and then dark brown. Some parts will also be, according to this image anyway, it's not in the other image that I was talking about in the previous episode or the previous 2 episodes, where there's a slight pink, sort of purple involved, and I'm going to work that in a little bit because it's weird. It's in this source photo that I'm working from now, but it's not in the other photo that I used to repair the characters' faces. And I have explained how fascinating I found that particular solution, as I was having trouble with the faces, but I found another image that was exactly like this, but just coloured differently, so that went a long way to help. So yes, that's what I'm doing right now. There's a lot of subtle shading going on here, so it's best that I lay out the colours underneath first and then go over it with the dark brown, and then when I've done the dark brown shade, I can then go back in and do some refining. The dark brown shade is where I establish all the folds and the ripples in the cloth of the lab coat, or the material of the lab coat I should say. And you'll see all that taking place very soon. So, as I explained in the previous episode, this is 2 hours cut down into half an hour rather than the usual hour. Now this is because this process took me twice as long and I didn't expect it to, and it kind of messed up the timing of my episodes. I don't want it dragging on for too long, so I am going to try and utilize this tactic as often as I can now until the piece is finished. I think this might be the only case in which I need to do it though, judging from where I'm at now, because this is a voiceover after the fact, so I am watching a playback of my work and commenting on it. Oh, okay. I moved the camera a little bit there. That's good. So, yeah, you can see what I was talking about below on the doc's hip there. Some kind of weird pack. It doesn't look spot on right now. And I'm really not bothered about it at the moment because I just want to map it out and make sure the bulk of it is there. I will go back and do all the relevant fixing that I need to do to get it looking acceptable at least, because at the moment it's just looking a bit garbage. So getting my hair in the shot there, which is lovely. I don't think I've actually come across a more difficult process, this whole lab coat thing. And I think what it is that because I'm used to doing this in black and white, and it's, you know, I only really need one shade of graphite pencil and, you know, maybe two. But, you know, it's like a whole different dynamic when you're doing it in colour. And, you know, it is a lot like painting. The processes are very similar, because with painting you have to lay down a wash, and if you put your mindset into that idea of, yeah, it's more like painting than drawing, then I think you're kind of, you know, halfway there already. And I'm one of those stubborn people, you see. I won't be taught, and I don't like being taught by anyone. It just annoys me when people try to teach me things. I just sit there looking at them going, are you serious, bro? You know? One of my friends does it all the time. It's one of my friends that I don't think watches my channel much. I have no idea whether he does or not. He hasn't said that he does. But he always does that. Bless him, I love him. But, you know, he's just like a pain in the arse sometimes. Oh, bless him. But it's not you, don't worry. It's not you I'm talking about. Which you fucking know anyway, right? Sometimes I like to dig my own grave. It's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, swiftly moving on. Getting the right look for this lab coat is quite difficult, because this is the first time I am actually tackling something like this, and it is a white lab coat, but as I've stated before, there's yellows and oranges and blue, and eventually there's going to be a bit of purpley pink, and there's some, you know, orange and light brown and dark brown. There's so many colours involved, with the fact that you've got, you know, the ambient occlusion hitting his garment, and the the fall off from the direct lighting, and the shadows from that. There's so many things to consider here, but thankfully this is one of those things that doesn't really require much interpreting. I talked about interpreting in the previous episode. I think it was the previous episode, where sometimes you have to interpret something, because if you draw it directly as is, that it sometimes it doesn't work, and there's no rhyme or reason or explanation for it. It just doesn't work, and you have to kind of adapt it. So that you know, it usually involves letting go of the source photo and studying what you've drawn and working out how you can fix it, but staying within the parameters of the source photo. I hope that makes sense. And a good example is, as I've said again in the previous episode, the duck's eyes, because the duck's eyes in the original photo is a lot more wide open, and I doing it as is just didn't work. It didn't look right. It looked amateur, and so I had to make an executive decision and redo the eyes, how making it similar but making it acceptable at the same time. I didn't study any other images of Christopher Lloyd to do that. I just I took most of the cues from the second source photo that I found. That helped me a lot, actually. That helped me a lot get most of the problem areas done. So it looks like a complete mess. I totally understand. But the logic is there. It'll really come out when I finalise the mid shades and the deep black shades, because right now I'm going to the shade, the dark side. Star Wars. I'm going to the dark side, but slowly. So I'm using, you know, a deep brown here and then the red at the moment now to just get some of that ambient occlusion from the orange and yellow that's hitting it. Just making sure I'm just doing it in the key areas there. So now comes the black pencil. This is where I'm setting everything in stone now. It's so easy to get confused and lost, and it's easy to give up, you know, at this point, because you're like, oh my God, where do I even begin? But as I keep saying, if you look at it in its most basic form, in terms of basic shapes, and you stick to that principle, you sketch out and you draw in those basic shapes. And then you look back and you see that it is all starting to make sense. And all you really have to do then is define the deeper shades and then define the highlights. And, you know, hey presto. I made a video ages ago about my top favourite movies of all time. Well, no, they weren't. It wasn't the top 10 movies of all time. It was the top 10 movies that made me who I am. That's what it was. And I've noticed that pretty much all of those movies were based in the 80s. They were all 80s films. I know, okay, it's the period when I was growing up, so that makes sense. But what I mean is that there were no movies after a certain period of my life that influenced me in a groundbreakingly developmental way, you know. So I you know, therefore I don't really know what my point is, but 80s movies were so good, and I'm pretty sure it's not just because of the fact that I was a young impressionable kid. I'm pretty certain it's because they were actually good movies, you know. The pacing, the storytelling, the characters, the vibrancy of those characters. There's, you know, it's one of those things where it will never be repeated again, because society isn't what it used to be. You know, you'll never get another 70s movie. You'll never get a classic slasher horror film that's done in the old style. You'll certainly never get another Back to the Future movie or a time travel movie that hits close to, you know, this. And I was talking with someone on a YouTube video in the comments section. I say talking, it was more like an argument. And we were discussing, politely discussing, what makes something a legend. And my argument was that if someone has broken ground, established a popular trend, and has been through a lot as a person, and has given back a lot, and is a nice person. And for me, that class is classified as a legendary person. I mean, there are people that have automatically just entered into that category of legendary people, despite, their characters perhaps being not so, nice. I mean, you've got Shakespeare and, Sigmund Freud and Einstein and all these people, sure. But, there's other people like Tolkien in particular. And I see Tolkien as a legend. I see his work as being that, akin to Shakespeare's work, and he's a national heritage. And so I don't like to, hear people speaking ill of him as a person. This gentleman was. He didn't think that Tolkien was all that. And it was a video on George R.R. Martin criticising Tolkien, and I had put in a comment saying, you have literally no right to comment Tolkien because your work is nowhere near as good, and that's my opinion, blah blah blah. But this guy, obviously he's looking for a fight, and he just called me a Tolkien tard all the time, and very childish. And I normally don't engage with these bellends, but it just wound me up that day, and I was trying to educate him, saying, do you actually understand what a legend means? You don't take the mantle of a legend away just because someone's written something better, right? He might be considered a good artist as well, but a legend will always be a legend, and you can't take that off them. You see what I'm saying? But he clearly didn't understand that concept. And it's, you can't teach rocket science to a gerbil, basically, so you shouldn't really even bother trying. And it all comes back to, choosing the right friends. I did a whole video, a whole podcast on it in my Wild Wisdom series, where I talk about how you have to choose your friends carefully. And this, it should all be just sort of obvious, but it isn't to some people. Because the friends you choose, kind of make you as a character. And what I'm saying is, you don't want anyone who's going to take liberties all the time, and some people do. It's a very interesting discussion. That's on my channel. If you wish to give that a listen, there's four episodes, all talking about various different things. So, right, we've got the form pretty much spot on. Happy with it now. You can see where I'm heading with the colouring, right? It's it's crazy, but you have to sketch what you see. You can't sort of you can't assume things, especially for me. Not sort of really knowing what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just I am winging it, believe it or not. It is, one gigantic experiment, all this. But I'm liking it now. I think I've gotten over the whole fear of it, and yeah. just making a couple of final tweaks to it now. It's going over, making sure that I'm 100% happy with the first stage of this. In the next episode, we will be working on his remote control. And we're going to make a start on the left side of his lab coat. And then I believe there's only going to be one more episode after that. So yeah, we're looking at about 7 or 8 episodes. It's been a long one, but it's been thoroughly enjoyable. At some point I am going to have to replenish some of my pencils. I only bought them about a month ago, and I might have to replace some already. But that's how it goes. Another moment where I forgot to press record. So, working on the hand now, and we are again taking it slowly. I'm always very nervous about doing hands. I always try to take my time. In this case, I am just being as gentle as possible, but quick as well. I'm trying to sort of be as quick as I can, and I don't want it to look like he's got a glove on. So after having done the basics here, I'm now free to go through and just do any minor fixing and tweaks and stuff. Some of this will be done in between episodes. The background, for instance, is a big part of that. And we're coming up to the end of the episode. I know, tis a sorry thing when a good thing comes to an end. But I've hoped you've enjoyed this action-packed, adrenaline-fueled episode. If you like what you see, you know what to do. I do my commissions for free. All you've got to do is subscribe, make a request, and the chances are at this point of the game, I'll say yes to your request. And you can always request other things after the fact. You're not limited to just one. So, you know, the way it stands at the moment, I choose one a month. But this month is an exception. A rather big exception, actually, because I'm technically doing 3 for people. The ones that I'm doing for myself is the Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, Harlequin. That's it, really, isn't it? Yeah, because no, Harlequin is for Cheryl. What am I talking about? Yeah. So anyway, yeah, you know, this month is an exception. But I'm more than happy to tweak my schedule. Honestly, just, you know, if you need something done by a certain date and you run out of options, then just give me a message. Of course, I won't always say yes. I may be overloaded with work and your project may be delayed. But that's how it goes. So we're dealing with Doc Brown's shirt now underneath the lab coat. Just quickly going through and drawing out the basic pattern that I see. Making sure I get the antenna in there. Gotta just make sure that's straight all the time. Alright everyone. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. And I hope you will join me for the next one. There are so many other videos on my channel, so do give them a watch if you're so inclined. And it's not just sketch videos. I have done a few other features, short features, which you might find interesting, can't talk. And then I also have my Wild Wisdom podcasts, if you're looking for a bit of unbiased, logical reasoning. So, until the next episode, I shall see you later. Take care of yourself. Speak to you soon.